So I know what vertex form looks like. Vertex form looks like this. Y equals a x minus h squared plus k. I already know what my a is. My a is 2, so I can write y equals 2 x. Now I have to figure out what h and k are. It's very easy to figure out what h is because I know my x-intercepts. Over here, my x-intercept is 1, and from here, my x-intercept is -3. So if my x-intercept is 1 and -3, I can figure out what the middle term would be. The middle term would be the middle between these two terms. That's where the vertex is. That's what the equation of the axis is. Equation of the axis is add these things together, 1 plus -3 divided by 2. Well, 1 plus -3 is -2 divided by 2 is -1. So I know that the equation of the axis is x equals -1. So that is my h. X minus -1 is x plus 1. Now I can find my k as well by plugging in x equals -1 into this formula. I'm not going to do that for you. I'm going to let you do that. But when you do plug this in, it's going to be -1 minus 1, which is -2, times another 2, times another 2, which will be -8. So this is what the formula should look like at the end. And that's the easiest way to come up with vertex form from something that is in factored form. So let's take a look at another question. Let's look at number 12. Number 12 says, actually not number 12, I just did number 12, so let's take a look at the next section. And if I turn to 4.3 and I look on page 222, I'm going to first look at question number 3F. So let's look at 3F. And 3F says to use the quadratic formula to solve for this right here. Okay, so just a basic one, use the quadratic formula in order to solve. Round your answers to 2 decimal places. So it's very important that you understand it always has to be written in this form, standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. My a value is -8, my b value is 5, and my c value is 2. I'm of course going to use x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Make sure you have this written properly. And so x is equal to negative, and then my b is 5, plus or minus the square root of b is 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is -8, times c, which is 2. And this is all going to be over 2 times a, which is -8. Be careful when you're doing all this stuff so that you're not coming up with the wrong answer, obviously. But when I continue this, I end up with x equals -5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared is 25. -4 times -8 is positive 32 times another 2 is positive 64. So be careful there, all over -16. If I continue this, I'm going to get x equals -5 plus or minus the square root of that plus that is 89 all over -16. So now I'm going to figure out what the square root of 89 is. It wants it to 2 decimal places, so I'll write x equals -5 plus or minus now the square root of 89. If I do that using my calculator, I get approximately 9.43 when I round to 2 decimal places all over -16. So I'm going to split this up into 2 answers. X equals -5 plus 9.43 all over -16. Or I have x equals -5 minus 9.43 all over -16. If I do this one here, and I'll do that one quickly, I have -5, and I'm going to add 9.43, and I'm going to divide that by -16, and I get approximately -0.28. So that's my first x-intercept. And if I do -5 minus, -5 minus 9.43, and I divide that by negative 16, I'm going to get x equals 0.90 as my second x-intercept. Okay, so it's very important you understand how to come up with those two x-intercepts. All right, let's try another question here. Another question will be question 7. So if I look at question 7 and I read question 7, question 7 has a function that looks like this: f at x is equal to 60x minus 2x squared. And the question reads this. It says, a gardener wants to fence these 3 sides of a yard in the front of her house. She bought 6 meters of fence and wants an area of about 400 meters squared. The quadratic formula f at x equals 60x minus 2x squared, where x is the width of the yard in meters and f at x is the area in square meters. Give the area, and that gives the area that can be enclosed. Determine the dimensions that will give the desired area. So what they want for area, if you read the question again, they want the area to be 400. So that's what I'm going to plug in here. And so I'm trying to solve this. Now how do I solve this? You have to bring everything to one side equals 0. Which side do you bring it to? It doesn't matter. I'll bring everything to the left side so that the x squared is positive. So I'll write positive 2x squared, bringing the 60x to this side, negative 60x, and I still have plus 400 equals 0. So essentially, this is the exact same question as number 3f, except I have different numbers here now. So just always make sure you have this written correctly. So my a value is 2, my b value is negative 60, and my c value is 400. Okay? And of course, you're going to plug it into the exact same formula that you did to come up with the correct answer. I won't do that for you. I just set it up for you. Let's take a look at another question. The other question is the same page, and it's number 11, and it's under communication. So this asks us to determine the roots of 3x minus 4 squared minus 17 equals 0. Okay, so it asks us to determine the roots to 2 decimal places by isolating. You have to isolate for x minus 4 squared, then taking the square root of both sides. Okay, so it wants us to isolate this. So this is question A. Isolate for x. So find this isolating for x. Remember, this is not in standard form, it's in vertex form, so you couldn't use the quadratic formula right now unless you've multiplied this all out. So you can find the x-intercepts if you use what is called isolation. So you want to isolate for x. So how would you do that? So how I would do that is I would leave everything attached to the x right now on this side. I'm going to bring this negative 17 to this side, and it's going to become positive 17. And if I continue that, now what do I do? Well, now that I have this, I can get rid of this 3 out in front. This is 3 multiplied by this stuff. So what I'm going to do is, to get rid of that 3, I'm going to do the opposite operation of multiplication, which is divide both sides by 3. So I've divided both sides by 3. So when you go to divide both sides by 3, you're going to get x minus 4 all squared, and on this side you're going to get something like 5.66666 repeating. Now it only wants us to determine this to 2 decimal places, but I'll keep a few decimal places for now. Then, how do I get rid of this square? What is the opposite operation of square? The opposite operation of square is the square root. So in order to get rid of the square, I'm going to take the opposite operation, which is the square root of both sides. This square root will get rid of the square, so you'll be left with x minus 4. And on this side, just be careful, because I had mentioned before the square root of 1. The square root of 1 is positive 1. Why? Because 1 times itself is 1. But the square root of 1 is also negative 1. Why? Because negative 1 times negative 1 is also positive 1. So it's plus or minus. So when I take the square root of 5.66666, I got to remember it's plus or minus, and when I do that on my calculator, I'm going to end up with 2.38. That's 2 decimal places. Continuing this, now I can solve for x. X is equal to plus or minus 2.38, and if I bring the 4 over, it'll be plus 4. So I can break this up into two answers now. I have x equals positive 2.38 plus 4, or I have x equals negative 2.38 plus 4. When I do this one here, I get x is equal to 6.38. This is my final answer. And when I do this one here, I get x is equal to 1.62. That's my second answer. Okay, so this is solving algebraically. Okay, so solving by isolating for x. Notice that it is not in standard form, so I did not put it in standard form. Okay, I just solved by isolation. Now let me jump over to another section, this is on page 214, and this was from section 4.2. I'm going to take up a problem here, and it's question number 11. And question number 11 has this: p at x is equal to negative 60x squared plus 1800x plus 16,500. Now it says that a theater company's profit, p at x is the profit, on a production is modeled by this function. Okay? Where x is the cost of the ticket in dollars, according to the model, what should the company charge per ticket to make a maximum profit? So in order to determine the maximum profit, you have to understand that you are trying to find the vertex. The vertex always is the max or the min. So try to find the vertex. Easiest way to find the vertex from something that is in standard form is obviously using x equals negative b over 2a. That's going to give you where the vertex is located, the equation of the axis. So this is x equals negative b is 1800 all over 2 times a, which is negative 60. So x is equal to negative 1800 all over negative 120. Okay? And so if you just do negative 1800 divided by 120, you're going to get positive 15. So positive 15 is where my vertex lies. My vertex is 15 something. I can figure out the something by plugging it into this equation. So profit at 15 is equal to negative 60. This is going to be 15 squared plus 1800 times 15 plus 16,500. So when I do this, just remember that I should square first. So this is negative 60 times that squared is 225 plus, and then I could do 1800 times 15. That's 27,000 plus 16,500. Okay, so I can do now negative 60 times 225. And I get negative 13,500 plus 22,000 plus 16,500. And then if I add these things together, I get 25,000. Okay? So 25,000. So that means there is a maximum of $25,000. Oops, sorry. $25,000, and it happens at x equals 15. So when the ticket price is $15, I will have a maximum profit of $25,000. That's how you would find that. Again, you're trying to find the maximum, and you know that the maximum always is the vertex. So whenever a question is asking you for the maximum, if it's in vertex form already, you already know the maximum. But if it's not in vertex form, clearly, if it's in factored form, if it's in standard form, you can use this, x equals negative b over 2a, to figure out where the vertex is, and then obviously plugging that in to the original formula, it will give you the maximum. So I figured out that the vertex lies at x equals 15, plugged in 15 and got 25,000. So my max is 25,000 and it happens at x equals 15, ticket price equals 15.